Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Damien Sneed Dialogues. This is episode 9, and our focus this evening happens to be global change agents in arts and entertainment. I'd like to introduce my first guest. Her name is Karla Scott. Karla Scott is a dear friend of mine. She is truly my sister, and I cannot say enough about her, and I will say a little more later, but I would like to read her bio. As far as classical music, the versatile American soprano, Karla Scott, who possesses a voice of remarkable clarity and beauty of timbre, has been described by the Washington Post as a vividly expressive soprano, equally comfortable performing in various musical genres. Dr. Scott, as we see her now, recently performed with soprano solo in Mozart's Vespers with the Maryland Summer Chorus and orchestra under the baton of Dr. Cindy Bachpies. She also performed the solo soprano role in the Verdi Requiem with the Annapolis Symphony and combined choruses of the United States Naval Academy. In previous seasons, Karla, along with collaborative pianist Dr. Alexei Ulitin, premiered From Slavery to Freedom, a song cycle by American concert pianist and composer Alan Mandel at the University of Maryland, College Park. Mr. Mandel's settings of Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poems on slavery were juxtaposed with songs by Samuel Coleridge Taylor, the Anglo-African composer best known for his choral cantata, Song of Hiawatha. Dr. Karla Scott has performed as a soloist with the Samuel Coleridge Taylor Society based in Portland, Maine, and was included in the documentary film featuring the composer's works. She has performed Mahler's Resurrection Symphony with the Annapolis Symphony at the United States Naval Academy, the Villalobos Bachianas Brasileiras No. 5, transcribed for 8 basses rather than 8 celli, and a filmed masterclass with famed mezzo-soprano Friederike Flicke von Stade, where Mrs. Scott's performance drew rave reviews from von Stade. In earlier seasons, Dr. Karla Scott was soprano soloist for Mozart's C minor Mass in Annapolis, Mahler's Symphony No. 4 in College Park, Maryland, the Verdi Requiem in College Park, Maryland, Serpina in Pergolesi's La Serva Padrona in Greenville, North Carolina, Clorinda in Rossini's La Cenerentola in Greenville, North Carolina, Kathleen in Vaughan Williams' Riders to the Sea in College Park, Maryland, Pamina in Mozart's Die Zauberflöte. In Rome, Italy, Mrs. Scott also sang alongside Metropolitan Opera soprano Carmen Balthrop, a special performance of the African national anthem for the late South African president, Nelson Mandela, and she performed for the funeral services of Rosa Parks, held in Washington, D.C. She has appeared at the Kennedy Center, the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., and in a film about the life of African-American composer Chester Hairston. Academically, Ms. Scott has earned a Bachelor of Music in Vocal Pedagogy, the Science of Voice Training from East Carolina University, a Master of Music in Vocal Performance with a concentration in opera from the University of Maryland, and in 2016, she earned a doctorate in music, vocal pedagogy concentration from the University of Maryland, College Park. She has served as an instructor at the U.S. Naval Academy, as adjunct faculty at the University of Maryland, College Park, and in 2018, she joined the music faculty at Eastern University in St. David, Pennsylvania. Karla's doctoral dissertation research was interdisciplinary in nature and examined the intersection of gospel music, leadership development, and American nationalism. In worship, as a worship leader and workshop presenter, Karla Scott has served numerous churches in national and international conferences in the United States and the Caribbean, allowing her to fulfill the mandate on her life to make Jesus known through worship. She has shared ministry settings with many notable pastors, psalmists, and recording artists in the body of Christ, including Twinkie Clark, T.D. Jakes, Smokey Norfolk, Alvin Slaughter, and had the opportunity to serve President Barack Obama and the First Family as the worship leader during the MLK worship services in 2012. In 2017, Dr. Scott launched the Power of Your Voice interactive vocal coaching series, which allows her to serve and support singers in the body of Christ all over the world. In choral work, Dr. Scott's choirs have appeared at the 2014 Kennedy Center Honors in Washington, D.C., on a goodwill tour of South Korea in 2011, and at the 2008 inauguration concert for President Barack Obama. Her choirs have performed in Zimbabwe, Africa, with then President Mugabe in attendance, and in Washington, D.C. for a United Negro College Fund celebration with former President Bill Clinton. In 2013, Karla partnered with Jazz at Lincoln Center to create a touring workshop introducing Mr. Wynton Marsalis's landmark work, The Abyssinian Mass, a gospel celebration, to hundreds of secondary and college students in the East Coast and Midwestern states. A tireless advocate for fostering connections between young people and the arts, Karla is an in-demand workshop and master clinician. In 2018, she served as guest clinician in Cullera, Spain, for a week-long choral festival south of Barcelona, sponsored by Fede Gospel. As an author, in 2017, she released her first book, Steady Faith, Navigate the Detours, Live Your Purpose, Make a Difference. The book supports leaders, influencers, and creatives in the healthy examination of the state of their souls as they continue to lead others. And as an entrepreneur, Dr. Scott is the founder and CEO of The Vocal Spa, a music training company which provides classes, workshops, books, group and private training for singers. Her podcast, Creative Talk, features interviews with creative women of color. Her publishing company, Edo Publishing, is the imprint responsible for her recording projects and literary publications. Can we please welcome my dear friend and sister, Dr. Karla Scott? Can you say something, Karla?
Good evening, everybody. Damien, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I cannot wait to jump into the topic that you planned for us.
Yes, and I must say that Karla is someone that I met very young in life. I was actually at a church at a worship service, and she was seated in front of me, along with the oldest daughter of her mentor and voice teacher, Carmen Balthrop. It was her daughter, Nikki, and they turned around and said, "Were you singing?" I said, "Yes, I was." And we developed a relationship as I would go to church. That was at the Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church, 510, I believe, Rhode Island Avenue. It may be 610, Rhode Island Avenue, Northeast.
Oh, yeah.
I would see Karla all the time. And one day I happened to be walking with my mentor, the great Sylvia Oden Lee, down the hall, and we made a turn, and she went into one vocal studio. I believe it was Charlotte Holloman, and I went into the vocal studio of Carmen Balthrop, and Karla was there. And I'm like, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "What are you doing here?" And Carmen Balthrop said, "Wait, do you all know him?" And then we recounted the story of how we sit together in church, and we became the best of friends since then. So please welcome again my friend, Dr. Karla Scott.
Thanks again, Damien, for having me.
And the next person I'd like to introduce is another friend of mine, mentor and brother. And his name happens to be John Stoddart. John Stoddart, Celine Dion, India Arie, Al Jarreau, Kirk Whalum, Will Downing, Take Six, Patty Austin, Michael McDonald. Those are all names of the various cadre of artists and personalities that he has worked with in his career. John Stoddart is a Philadelphia native, and he has either written for, sung with, played for, or produced all of the artists, each of them that I've named. And those are just a few of the names that pepper John Stoddart's musical resume. To quote him, he said, "In my 30-year career, there's not one musician whom I have more confidence, for whom I have more respect, with whom I have traveled more miles and negotiated more musical and life challenges than John Stoddart." And that was the quote of the great, great two-time Stellar Award-winning saxophonist and Grammy Award winner, Kirk Whalum.
Wow.
Kirk Whalum also is a Dove Award nominee. In fact, Kirk is such a fan of John Stoddart that he utilizes John's talents on many of his live dates, as well as in the studio on so many of his projects, including his critically acclaimed Gospel According to Jazz series. John Stoddart grew up in a musical family and was singing and playing the piano in church almost as soon as he could walk. His formal training began at the age of 13, convincing him that he had found his career. In 1993, he earned a Bachelor of Arts in Piano and Voice from the Washington Adventist University, formerly known as Columbia Union College in Tacoma Park, Maryland, right outside of DC. Even before graduating, John had formed Urban Junction East Music, his production and publishing company. He quickly began to accrue credits as a session vocalist, an arranger, songwriter, and producer with artists then such as Whitley Phipps, Sandy Patty, Boney James, Al Jarreau, Bob James, Celine Dion, Darren Atwater and the Soulful Symphony, Will Downing, Take Six, and Petty Austin. John has also partnered with saxophonist Kirk Whalum as a co-producer, arranger, and our musician on several of Kirk's Grammy-nominated recordings, such as Hymns, In the Garden, The Christmas Message, and Everything is Everything, a tribute to Donny Hathaway. John was even the associate producer on Whalum's The Gospel According to Jazz, Chapter 3, which won a Grammy in 2011 for the song It's What I Do. John's composition, I Still Believe, was featured on guitarist Norman Brown's album Just Chillin'. Blue-eyed soul legend Michael McDonald contributed the lead vocals to that song, which won for him another Grammy Award for Best Pop Instrumental Album. John has also performed at prayer services for Presidents William Jefferson Clinton and George W. Bush. Also an HBO inaugural special with his arrangement of God Bless America, performed by the boss herself, Diana Ross. And he's performed at various award shows and events, including the pre-Grammy Gospel Extravaganza, the Stellar Awards, the Dove Awards, and the Trumpet Awards. John even performed at the 2004 Quincy Jones MTV We Are the Future concert in Rome, Italy, to benefit the children in war-torn countries. In 2010, John created and orchestrated arrangements for the first ever John F. Kennedy Center of the Performing Arts Joyful Sounds Gospel Concert with the National Symphony Orchestra in Washington, D.C. John was also one of the performers at this event. While John is a sought-after collaborator, he is first and foremost a solo artist who records and tours on his own when he's not sharing his gifts with other artists. Most of his albums have been released on his own label, Urban Junction East Music, UJE, A Not So Silent Night, and Love So Real in 1998. I still have those albums. In 2006, Faces in 2008, Faith, Hope, Love in 2010, and Only on Christmas Day in 2013. In 2003, John debuted his major label album, Wings to Walk This Road, on the Warner Reprise label. Though based in Alabama, where he is an artist in residence at Oakwood University, John's music and artistry have global reach as he continues to record, perform, produce, write, and even lecture about music for appreciative audiences. His first priority, though, is to Helen and their daughters, his wife Helen, and their daughters Annalise and Anya Noel. It is a divinely inspired one born of John's own convictions about faith, hope, and love. And to quote John, he says, when we add God into our relationships, whether it's marriage, our parent-child, or at work, it just makes a difference. John said, that's what I believe. Can we welcome John Stoddart?
Damien.
Yes.
Thank you for having me, my brother.
So I am super excited today that we have these phenomenal artists that are here with us, my friends. And today we're going to be talking about global change agents in arts and entertainment. We see here the phenomenal singer, Andrea Jones Sojola. She sings classical, she sings opera, she sings Broadway, she sang hello to Karla and myself. And then we have all the way from Australia. Her son was on last week, Justin Michael Austin. And we have the great singer originally from Augusta, Georgia, Altoise Devon, who's on. We were talking about her last week, one of the first African-American women to be in the Houston Grand Opera's Young Artist Program. Yes, and John, so his middle name is Fitzgerald Stoddart. Yes, he is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, we love you too. You know, it's so interesting as I get ready to go to the questions. You know, I've really been taking the time to make sure that I give people their flowers while they live. I really can't say enough about these two individuals. You know, you're always blessed when you get to glean from people. Some people say gleam, you know, but when you get to watch someone do what they do, and that's broken English, that's not correct, but that's why I want to say do what they do, and watch them do it well, and when they open up their space and their heart and their spirit to you. These two individuals have really, really shaped my development. And the blessing is that they're still in my life. So this is another reason why I chose them. I see them as global change agents doing things around the world in arts and entertainment. A lot of people say to me, Damien, you do so many things, but God has blessed me with the privilege of seeing great mentors like Jesse Norman and Wynton Marsalis when I was in Augusta, and Elaine Sturkey, and seeing Wycliffe Gordon do many different things. But then when I got to college, you get mentored again. And there were the teachers there that I had at Howard University. But I have to say, making a choice to go to school in the DMV, that's the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, for those who don't know, I must say that my training did not just come from the third floor hallway of the Fine Arts building at Howard University, but it came from outside relationships. So I was attending Greater Mount Calvary Holy Church, and I met Karla Scott at a very, very pivotal time in my life, because we ended up, the great singer DeAndre Simmons from San Diego, the great Bettina Pennon from Long Island, my dear friend, love you. It's so interesting because Karla and I became very close very quickly. And I had no idea the scope, the length, the breadth of her classical abilities, her training, but we served at a church together for a number of years. And in those moments, college can be very different. I know my Aunt Dot is watching, and, my parents have gone on, but I'll tell you one thing. Anytime I was going through something, Karla would always call me and pray for me. I didn't even have to tell her what it was. Her gifting spiritually is just right on it. And she would always call me and pray for me. The laughs, our sense of humor is very much on the same frequency, but we really have a great relationship. Being able to travel with her down to North Carolina, to her parents' farm, and being able to spend time with her father, and we'll talk about him later on. Being able to travel around the world with her, it's been absolutely amazing. I cannot say enough for someone who really has my back and someone who's in my corner. I don't get to talk to her often. Sometimes it feels like we talk once, twice, 3 times a year, and then we catch up. And we understand that in our relationship, there are pockets. And sometimes some of your closest friends, hello, Lionel Andrews, one of the greatest musicians in America, definitely out of New Jersey, Hammond organ player and singer, the aunt of the great singer Tiffany Andrews Woodside. But Karla, you've been there, and I just want to say thank you. Karla and I, a lot of our career paths have they come together and then they may separate a little bit. But as far as our destiny in many different areas of our career, whether it's gospel music, whether it's jazz music, whether it's love songs, whether it may be classical music, whether it's opera, whether it's education, they align. And it's good to be able to have a friend that you can bounce things off, that you can check things off. And we both call each other at times and just start praying, and we don't know what's going on, and we're right on it, because the Spirit of God which connects all of us. And I have to say, I truly love you. You have been a friend and a sister to me, and I so appreciate you. And I'm going to say even more as we move on. And then what can I say to John Stoddart? The same time at Howard University, the great Dr. Lloyd Mallory, for some reason, he contacted me, why, I don't know, and he asked me to travel with the Oakwood University, or that time Oakwood College, Aeolians. I think I was a sophomore or junior at Howard University. That was my first tour, and we traveled to New York first, Long Island. And it's funny because I don't live too far away from here, from that hospital, the Long Island North Shore Jewish healthcare system. How are you, Patrick McCoy? How are you, Floretta? Yes, it's so interesting because I never knew that I would end up living not too far from that hospital. We see Sibu from South Africa, from East London, who's now living in New York and is going to be starting at Nyack College. And then I see Theodore Thorpe. What's up, man? Theodore Thorpe is the minister of music at Alfred Street Baptist Church, where the great Joyce Garrett has been a part of that music ministry. And Karla Scott was the director of the Naval Academy Gospel Choir after Joyce Garrett. Anyone from the DMV knows the great Joyce Garrett, a great choral conductor with the Eastern High School, I believe is the name of the school.
Yes.
And then also, we also know that for many years, Nolan Williams would do concerts at that church as well. I got to see the great Janice Chandler Ateme, who is also of the Seventh-day Adventist community, the Adventist community. That's the politically correct way of saying it. That's my mother, everybody. Jacqueline, say hello to her. She's beautiful. Now, John Stoddart is so interesting because everyone, if you don't know, and I said this during a talk with my friend Jeremy Winston, the Adventist community, to me, I think there's no better choral sound that I've heard of, definitely here in America. And if you want to hear the interpretation of a hymn, go to anyone out of the Adventist community. I remember Lloyd Mallory. I can't remember the name of the administrator from the college. You may remember her name. I think, John, I think you were gone. Maybe your wife was having a baby or something was going on. Maybe he was traveling with Quincy Jones. But he could not do this tour. And the hospital that we stopped at, the speaker was Yolanda King, who's now deceased. And Yolanda King is the oldest daughter of Martin Luther King. And then I think we went to Rhode Island. And it was amazing because on that bus was Jason Ferdinand, who's now the current conductor. Right. So he was a student. Jeremy Winston, who has Jeremy Winston Corral, who was the conductor for Wilberforce University and Central State. We had of Tre Voce, we know Brandy Sutton and Collie Wilder, but also there was Anika Sampson. I can't think of her last name now.
Anderson.
Anderson, thank you. Hello, Christine, another great singer. It's so interesting. Makita, who also I believe is from Oakwood University, Oakwood College, as we used to call it. But to be on that bus and work with Lloyd, and then Lloyd said, my cousin, are you all related? I think you all are related, right?
We are, yeah.
But let me tell you all, if you listen to my recording, Broken to Minister, I attempted the hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing. But it's because I heard I visually saw the Mac Wilberg arrangement with John Stoddart on pipe organ. And I'm not sure if he was playing the pipe organ on the keyboard at that time, because he's also a phenomenal pipe organist. I've had a chance to travel with him as well, with Nolan Williams. And I think one time when I was playing at the Metropolitan Baptist Church, I think Richard Small was there that Sunday, either Carlton Burgess. I think John was filling in for the great Evelyn Curenton. Evelyn Simpson Curenton, who did arrangements for Jesse Norman and Kathleen Battle for the Spirituals concert. So I'm showing you all the history. My cousin, Cherie is on, Cherie Leverett. I'm not sure if you remember her, Karla. That's Tony's mother. Yeah. But hello, Angela Brown. Oh, my goodness.
Hey, Angela.
Okay, great Angela Brown.
For this woman.
I love this woman. I'll tell you.
For her.
I will never forget backstage at her Metropolitan Opera debut when the great April Haynes out of the DMV area took me backstage like minutes before Aida. And Angela was listening to Yolanda Adams' The Battle Is Not Yours. And I said, and Angela doesn't know, but that song brought me through so much when I was in high school. I listened to that song over and over. So for me, when I saw Angela in her dressing room listening to that song before, it was God speaking to me. And I remember, I can say this now, but I remember backstage. I'm still going to get to you, John, and we'll. I remember backstage.
Take your time.
I remember backstage. Hey, Jeremy's on. Dr. Jeremy Winston. Yes, this is so great. So many Aeolians. It's wonderful. But I remember the Lord saying to me when April kept saying, come on, we got to keep going. And I spoke to Angela. She was so calm and down to earth, just as John Stoddart was first time I met him. And I remember the Lord said, one day you'll be making your debut. I didn't know that my debut would come due to the death of my godmother, Jesse Norman, but I did have that. And so, Angela, every time I walk in the Metropolitan Opera, I think about you. So to watch you play Come Thou Fount, John, I was mesmerized by your talent. Then after that, I remember Lloyd Mallory, I think, connected us. And then I remember the 301 number. I just remember that because it was like a year.
I still
and you had me travel to your home where your wife was, and you let me go to your studio and you gave me 2 of your CDs, UJE, Urban Junction East. And no one other than Richard Smallwood had invited me to their home and to their studio and had been so gracious. And I remember you also gave me a copy of the Lord's Prayer that you arranged for tenor. Is it cello or tenor and violin?
Oh, it was tenor and violin. Yeah, tenor and violin.
Tenor and violin. I've added that to the Manhattan School of Music library. That's part of the music that I'm adding. Yeah, because it's an amazing setting. But I have to say, you have really been a great mentor. Another person I don't talk to often, But every time I see John, as you can tell, his spirit is very meek and humble. But he's done so many things, just as Karla has. He's traveled the world with some of the greatest people, but he's still the same. He has not changed. And I had a chance to work with him with the great Nolan Williams, another mentor of mine. And we had a chance to hang then. It had been a while and catch up and, just sending a message every now and then. But I have to tell this story. I was doing a concert with the great Lawrence Brownlee, American Songbook at Lincoln Center, or the Great American Songbook. And John Stoddart sent me a message by text and said, hey, hopefully this is still your number. I'm actually on the train or something. He said, I think you're coming from Maryland on the way up to New York. I'm coming to your concert. If you're available, I'm sure you're busy. Let's grab some coffee or grab a bite to eat afterwards. And I was blown away. And after the performance, he waited till I finished selling Spiritual Sketches CDs and the book. And then we spent time talking, and I was blown away that someone could remember a mentee from years before. This was my sophomore year when I met Karla, my sophomore year when I met John Stoddart. And it's just amazing that these two people have stayed in my life. And not only have they stayed in my life as as mentors and friends and siblings, like a brother and sister, not just because I would reach out to them, but they actually took the initiative to continue to reach out to me. And I cannot honor you all enough. It's amazing. I'm able to do what I do today because I'm able to look at people like yourselves that are doing things on such a high level. And it's just absolutely amazing to me. So now we'll ask the questions so we can get started, because I can talk about you all forever. You all sit here, So I'd like to ask this question for Karla first. Karla, how did you come to be in your present career field? You can start from day one with your first instrument, whatever you want to say. Let everybody know how you came into this field of what you're doing as a global change agent. You are, and John happens to be as well, in arts and entertainment.
That is, first of all, such an interesting moniker. It would definitely not be the way that I see myself, but I would say that I grew up in a family that emphasized three things: faith in God, education, and music. The pursuit of music, really the pursuit of the creative arts. Both of my parents were teachers. My father was a music educator. And in the town in which I grew up, which is Greensboro, North Carolina, civil rights town, where the Woolworth store is, where the very famous sit-ins were, my dad was one of the very first handful of teachers that integrated that town in terms of the teaching field. He also pioneered both the orchestra and the band programs in the African American schools in the city, but he was one of the first teachers to also be sort of a traveling music educator in the white schools as well. So as far back as I can remember, my parents knew the value of what happened in what our community had when it was segregated, but they also knew the value and the advantages that we were afforded because of integration. So very, very early on, those were lessons that were sort of caught. I don't know that there was ever a time that my parents sort of sat down and talked to me about those things in detail, but just the way that they lived their lives, the way that they served people, the way that they were very intentional about educating whomever came across their path. These were things that were sort of caught, and I had no way of knowing that I would follow in my parents' footsteps because I had no desire to be a teacher. I saw how hard my parents worked. I saw how dedicated they were to, other people's children and their growth. And I saw how, because they were very good at what they did, they were often handed the children who were more difficult, because some way they just had a way of turning those stories around. That was definitely not what I saw myself doing with my life. I just wanted to be a performer all the way around, but little did I know the power of a detour. My goal was to, of course, be a world famous singer and a world famous classical singer, and that's all I wanted to do. Go around this world and make the Scott name great. That was it. But the Lord had other plans, and I remember my dad saying to me very early on, I think you should also consider teaching. And I thought, I think you should mind your business.
That's great.
I really don't want to do what you are doing. But there's something about what God gives your parents to speak over your life. And when it comes from the Lord, you will not escape it. You won't. You will run from it all you want to, but you won't escape it. So sure enough, I found myself teaching, but my first teaching opportunities were at the university level. Literally, I was 2 years older than my students when I was teaching at college. You walk into the classroom and they go, "Have you met the new teacher yet?" And I go, "No, have you met her?" And then when the class starts, I go, "Hi, I'm the new teacher." What? But little did I know, to wrap up a very long story, little did I know that one move to obey my father's admonition and teach in addition to performing would be the vehicle that the Lord used to take me around the world. Teaching took me around the world before performing did. And for that reason, and occupying that role, I would say, of an educator, really required you to kind of put on your leadership boots and learn that leadership is actually serving, and all sorts of things. But also, I would finally say this: teaching positioned me to be in front of groups that were so different from me. And it positioned me to stop seeing people as other and see where the commonalities were and begin to work at bringing things together. So it was literally the admonition of my father, saying yes to teaching, and then seeing that as an opportunity to build bridges that I think has maybe something to do with this moniker that you've assigned to us tonight.
Wow. That is amazing. Just to bring to summation some of the major nuggets. Patrick, I know you're over there tapping your feet like I am and saying amen. You literally just said some major things. You said faith in God, education, and music. And I have to say, for me, it's been the same things. My parents introduced me to God, to Jesus. And I know there are people watching that don't ascribe to Christianity or are the same faith, but the disclaimer is that that's my belief. And for me, God has been my everything. Education, both of my parents were school teachers, and they didn't have a lot of great musical talent, but they helped to nurture the gifting that God put inside of me. And those three tenets, principles have been the forwarding propellers in my career and to my destiny. But then you said something else that's powerful. You said that teaching was the vehicle that God used to take you around the world. It's so interesting that a lot of people, we've talked about this in previous Damien Sneed dialogues for those that are repeat viewers, that a lot of people want to be stars, they want to be in lights, they want the big stage. But for me and for Karla and for John as well, for us, and I'm speaking for John and I'm speaking for Karla because I know it's true, for us, it's more pleasing to fulfill whatever assignment we have and to be what we are supposed to be for that moment. We're not people who are chasing after money, chasing after lights, awards. If we get them, that's great. We're not following those types of things. And then you said something else. You said leadership is serving. That's very powerful because we don't have enough servant leaders in educational institutions, higher education institutions, just period, within our communities. We should serve others because that's really a good way to lead. But the thing that you really said that I have to point out is this particular statement: the power of a detour. Woo! Times, that'll preach.
I know, right? I was about to go over to the B3 and start backing her up. I was like, this is supposed to be a scholastic environment. Karla's over there preaching, man.
The power of a detour. I mean, that we could just pause right there. That is such a life lesson. That is such a powerful revelation if you can understand that detours sometimes are the things that will put you on track. when you think you're on track. I mean, we can go on and on about. We're gonna come back to that. So, John, while it's still bubbling and while you're thinking about getting on the Hammond.
And Damien, I'm not sure if it's just me hearing it, but did your mic do something strange here? I don't want to.
Yeah, it did.
It did. So just make sure I don't want people to miss what you're saying. So just double check the technical piece there for me.
It did. I'm gonna fix it. So, okay. John, can you tell me your story as how you came to be in your present career field, doing everything that you're doing, everything that you've done? Can you talk to us and tell us about
that? My story, there was a lot of things that Karla mentioned that I could relate to, growing up in a home where music was really important, where faith was really important, your faith in God, where education was emphasized. Damien, first of all, let me say, man, thank you so much for all your kind words. And as flattered as I am tempted to be, the way I see it, the reality is that, I could see back then that you were headed towards some really extraordinary things. So I'm so proud, man, not surprised at all when I see, and I'm on your email list. I get the emails about the things that are happening in your life and in your career. And I just want to say, man, I'm just so honored to know you and grateful. Thank you for this gracious invitation, for your kind words. And, we have for sure become brothers and colleagues now. I don't know if you, how it started out, but for sure at this point, I mean, you are someone whose giftings and whose accomplishments I truly respect. Thank you so Thank you so much for having me on today. So I could relate it, like I said, to Karla, the environment I think that I was blessed to grow up in was one that, especially as I reflect now, was so rich in faith in God. There was a diversity of music, in my house growing up, from classical to big band to sort of really conservative Christian music. My dad is from Jamaica. I mean, I grew up in Philadelphia, so there was in the 70s. So there was all the amazing music that was just in the water, I like to say, in Philadelphia growing up. And again, the Seventh-day Adventist music tradition is just, I'm so grateful for having been exposed and being a part of that tradition, because I didn't realize at the time that there's a level of musical scholarship, I'll call them. When I say that, I don't necessarily mean that everyone has a PhD, but there is just a level of excellence that is just expected. And, I live in Huntsville now, so I get to hear the music happening at Oakwood University. Growing up in Philadelphia, the great Alan Foster and Gwen Foster. Alan was one of the amazing organists in the city, again, Adventist guy who I met when I was probably 12 or 13. And he just had a profound influence on how I approach liturgical organ playing. He was the person who pulled my mother aside and said, hey, you need to get that kid into some, a conservatory or some more serious music lessons. So those were the types of things and the types of experiences and the types of people who sewed into me early on. And when I moved to the DC metro area, just like you, Damien, there were people in my sphere, people like Wintley Phipps, Richard Smallwood, colleagues and friends, now brothers like Patrick Lundy and Nolan Williams. And these were people who I sort of came along with, Daryl Hunt, Darren Atwater. There's just that city, especially at that time, was just, I mean, there was so much music. Melvin Bryant. I shouldn't have even started naming names, because there was just this fraternity, I would say, of musicians that I just fell into that the environment of that city was so incredible. Pastor Phipps took me under his wing, taught me a lot about songwriting and the music industry. I produced my first record, was a Whitley Phipps record there in the DC area, that I finished the same year I graduated from college. And so these were the experiences that I think began to shape what I do now, which can be, I'm kind of, can be doing such a wide variety of things depending on the day of the week. Anything, one day I'm arranging for Nolan Williams in the National Symphony. And, another day I'm, out on the road with Kirk Whalen playing a jazz show. Another day I just got back from South Africa performing some of my own music. And I don't say that to brag, but just to say that I just feel so fortunate to be able to because I have so many interests, and I just feel so fortunate to be able to work and to continue to explore all these different things that I love. Still getting a chance to work in the education, being close to Oakwood, and getting to rub shoulders with all these super, super gifted young kids coming up. It's just humbling. Just when you think you've met the baddest singer or the baddest musician, you meet some young person that just, young man or young lady that just blows you away all over again. It's like it gives you could probably relate to this, Karla, teaching too. It gives you, it's almost like you're hearing music again for the first time. And so, I would say another era of my development that I didn't realize at the time was going to be really instrumental was when I was in high school. I know I'm saying a lot of different things, so this is my last thing before we get back, is I went to a boarding academy in Pennsylvania, and I went there for my last 2 years, my junior and senior year, and I had an amazing piano teacher. It was only about 200 students, co-ed school, but my junior year, we had 11. Now remember, there's 200 kids in the school. We had 11 pipe organists in the school. I'm talking playing Bach fugues and toccatas. These are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids in a 200 school. There are music like university programs that don't have 11 pipe organ majors. She had 50, 60 piano students in her studio. And her husband, she taught choir and piano. Her name is Nancy Edison. And her husband, John Edison, taught band, but he also taught mathematics. So he was a computer tech guy. And my senior year, they brought on an English teacher who had just graduated from college, but who was into sort of pop music. So he introduced me to music production, and they bought some like production equipment, and I started learning how to produce, and we were writing musicals. And this is, it wasn't even an art school. It was just this small little Seventh-day Adventist boarding academy, Blue Mountain Academy in Hamburg, Pennsylvania. And I didn't know it at the time, but these were the types of experiences that were shaping and building who I would eventually be. And I look back over those experiences now and see how just that diversity of exposure positioned me to be able to really feel comfortable in a wide variety of environments, whether it's classical, working with an orchestra, or with a pop artist, or with a jazz artist. And it's not because of anything that I've done necessarily, but it's just the hand of providence, God's hands of providence, just put me in these environments and around people who took an interest and who nurtured and who encouraged me. And who gave me opportunity to be able to explore all the different things that I was interested in.
Wow. That is absolutely amazing. I must say, I have to go back to something you said about the DC metropolitan area. I remember being in the DC area. It's amazing that we were there. And one person that we all have in common is the great Tony Walker.
Tony Walker, yes.
Was one of my piano teachers. Great spirit, great person.
Mm-hmm.
Another brilliant musician who's well-versed in every style and every genre.
Yep.
It's interesting because a lot of people have approached me many times and said, well, you should just focus on one thing and your career's not going anywhere because you're doing too many different things, and you're not doing this, and then something will happen in classical music for me. Oh, well, that's the hand of God. They have to make an excuse for what they ask them their opinion, but they have to make an excuse for what they said. And then they'll say, well, nothing's really happening in gospel or church for you because you need to do this, you need to do that, and the church, the music of the church will always be something dear to me because those songs are what constantly fuel my life when things get difficult and even when things are upbeat. The hymns of the church, the spiritual songs, and then whether it's jazz music or other styles or genres. John, you've been doing this for a very long time, and you've been doing every style and genre very well. Same thing with you, Karla. If you all can find the song, if I were a bird, I would sing to my father's. I forgot the rest of the words. I'll sing in his ear. Karla's very first album, I remember we did it at Carmen Barthrop's church in Maryland. Joy, was it called Joy River? Mm-hmm. Yes. Wow. It was so amazing. There were hymns, but we really went somewhere recording them. I think we did 1 or 2 recordings. I can't remember, 2 days of recording. I just remember
1 day.
Okay, 1 day. We had a rehearsal at the University of Maryland College Park.
We did.
And then we did the recording, and everything just happened magically. And one of the hymns was Be Thou My Vision. I know you don't, and then Take My Life and Let It Be. And those 2 hymns, I didn't know them until I had to learn them for Karla's recording. And those hymns are like bulwarks. Those are staples for my life. But you said something, John. You talked about the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. The great Wintley Phipps. Wow. I mean, what can we say? This man has paved the way for so many singers. And he's really what you call an ambassador, a dignitary. He is a diplomat in all manner of speaking. He is absolutely amazing vocalist and has always sung with spirit and life. And then what can I say about my mentor, Richard Smallwood? I was telling someone how I remember my senior recital at Howard University. Right, Patrick? Can you believe it? I remember Richard Smallwood and Twinkie Clark were in the audience for my senior recital. Such a great, very humble and a person, Richard Smallwood. We are so blessed to have him in the earth, have been graced to live on the earth and be around the metropolitan area while he's been writing, and that he's like, they don't make human beings like that. Not some people say once in a generation. No, that's what they make in the creation of all things. Right. In the beginning, God created. Like, that man is like, I can't even say enough. Patrick Lundy, who was also part of the Howard Gospel Choir. Great person, great brother. He's like a brother to me. He also was one of the former directors, I believe, of the Howard Gospel Choir. I know he was in the Howard Gospel Choir. He had a group called Ministers of Music, which Karla, one of my best friends, Takesha Roll Russell, sang in that group. And her mother, Karen Joseph, sang with Patrick Lundy and Ministers of Music. Then the great Nolan Williams. Takesha first started singing with Nolan Williams and Faith Luster, and before he was in Richard Smallwood's group, Byron Nichols. From Howard University, Nolan Williams, and Psalms, I believe, or the Psalmist. Psalms, I think it was. I can't remember. Psalms and Psalmist.
New Psalmist.
You all can type it in. Nolan Williams is another person who plays so many different styles of music, different genres. He was one of my first mentors. He took the time to meet with me and my mother and father and my aunt and uncle, and took us to eat at B. Smith's.
Right. Union Station.
Yeah, right in the outer corridor. And then Daryl Hunt and I went to school together at Howard University. Phenomenal musician, can play anything, just like Raymond Angry. Then say about Darren Atwater and Soulful Symphony. Darren has downloaded so much into me musically. When I got to play for the first Soulful Symphony in 2000, going to his home there with him and his wife, and being able to sit at the piano with him and watch him compose and watch him grow into the wunderkind that he is. And then Melvin Bryant, who also is in the Maryland area and is another phenomenal person. All these people play pipe organ, all of them. They all play pipe organ, they play piano, they play keyboards, they know how to produce, they do everything. And, it's so amazing that you mentioned, there she is. Wow, Faith. Faith. Yes. Anybody who doesn't know Faith, she's a phenomenal singer out of Texas. Her brother, Aaron Luster, was a trombonist at Howard. Her sister, Hope Luster, traveled all around the country with gospel plays. You know, and I'm calling these people's names out because one of the things I like doing is saying the name of so many people who are valuable and who have done so much to forward our education, to forward our learning. Because you said that all these people, the Lord allowed their hands to mold your gift, right?
Yeah, it's community. It happens in community. You know, we don't really learn or grow in a vacuum. And it's not just your mentors and your teachers, but I also think it's your colleagues and the people who are you're learning with. That you don't want to be the weak link in the group. You know, there's an accountability that we have to each other. You know, that it's hey, you know, we expect a certain level from one another, and I think that was a big part of why there was so much music. I mean, just so much amazing music in that area at that time, because we had so much respect for each other that it pushed us to be better ourselves, you know?
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. It's almost like the sibling factor, you know, a household that has like 4 children and then here comes the 5th baby. That 5th baby does everything faster than any other kid.
Right.
So many kids that they're looking at, and you're kind of, it's the same thing when you're looking at your peers, you're seeing what is possible now. I have to wait 10 years. You're doing it, let me try.
It's so interesting that you say that, particularly with Faith. Faith would walk down the hall scatting Ella Fitzgerald songs, do all these melismas and runs. And at that time, I was wooed and wowed by Takesha in the gospel choir, being able to do all these runs. But Faith Mona now, as she's married, she's the person that taught me how to do a melisma and how to run, because she would say, you know, first put it in your head voice and then just do the run slow and go over and over. Yes, David, that is Karla.
Hi.
Yes, we were there at church together, and she was on the cameras as well. All of you all are multi-gifted. So tell me this, Karla and John. I know it may be difficult because every time you turn around, there's a new door opening, there's a new horizon. You've been able to do so many different things. Can you all tell our viewers and listeners what are 1 to 2 of the defining moments of your life or career thus far? Karla, we'll start with you.
Oh, goodness.
Or 3.
Well, if I go way back, I would say 9 years old, first solo in church. And it was my first solo in church was also the day that I was baptized. Okay, you're 9, you don't know about pressure. But my father at that time is what would be called today a minister of music. I don't know that people were calling it that then, but he accompanied me, and I remember singing Amazing Grace. And I just remember something happening in that moment that did not happen when I did talent shows or sang the local pop song for somebody's fashion show or something like that. Something else happened, and it was the first time I really felt sung by the Holy Spirit. I'll say that. So that was 9 years old. And that really was so transformative that for a long time I thought, you know, I'm only going to be able to do this in church. Like, I have never experienced this anyplace else. And at 9, I knew the difference between, I didn't know the words then about the anointing versus simply operating in your gift or your talent, but that's a standout. What's another one? Oh, no.
I'll tell you what, let's go back and forth, Carly. That's one for you. Right. I'll have one. I'll do 2. And this is an interesting one because I'm a singer as well, but I'm much more self-conscious and shy about singing than about playing. I feel much more comfortable playing. And if I have to sing, let me sit at the piano and sing.
But you're an amazing singer.
So I'm going to tell an interesting one. I couldn't have been more than maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. And in my little church, West Philadelphia Seventh-day Adventist, 55th and Haverford Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And, back then, if an adult asked you to do something, you didn't have the choice of whether or not you were going to do it or not do it, or, So one of the ladies in the church asked my mother to have me sing this song, That's Why I Love Him So. And I was just mortified. And it was just one of this. I did it, of course, but it was just mortifying to me. So when I learned how to play, I said, I don't ever have to sing again. And I didn't sing again until I was probably late in high school, maybe 15, 16, 17 years old, because from the age of 3, 4, 5 years old, I was able to play. And so that was a defining moment, because I think that in many respects, it allowed me to focus on that part of who I was in terms of my development. And sort of the singing part was still there, but I was able to focus. So I actually consider that, in a reverse kind of a way, a pivotal moment. And one of the others was when I got a chance to work with Kirk Whalen for the first time. And Damien, you'll appreciate this, but he called me for a gig. We met. We were both in negotiations with Warner. Kirk was coming from Columbia, and I was talking with the same VP about my first record deal. And when the VP found out we were both Christians, he introduced us to one another. And he sent Kirk my first record that I'd done in my basement, Love So Real. And Kirk is a language lover. I did that song in Spanish. I rewrote What a Friend We Have in Jesus as sort of like this samba thing. And so he called me at my house one day, and long story short, he hired me for this gig, but it was a duo gig, just piano and saxophone. We were at his church in Illinois, and we were playing, I remember the song, we were playing Great Is Thy Faithfulness. And we were playing in E flat, and we got to the very end of the song, Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness, Lord unto, okay, so that's the B flat sus chord, right? Right. And the next chord is an E flat, right? Yeah. And so he's holding this note, and so I do, I'm kind of improvising on the 7 chord or the 5 chord there. And then instead of playing an E flat, he played an E natural on purpose. And I went, oh!
Neapolitan. I was just teaching this earlier today. Keep going. This is good.
Uh-oh, we lost you, John.
We lost you, John.
There you are. Nope.
John, we lost you. You muted yourself.
Sorry, I'm back. Okay.
Go back. Okay, so
there you go. Okay.
You were going to go to the 1, the E flat, but he played an E natural.
He played an E natural. Okay. So, and I went, try to find, try to do something that musically would make that kind of make sense, right? But, it's interesting, you were talking about how a lot of people desire sort of the limelight or to be up front. And I think a lot of people are born and destined for that. But what most people don't know about those people is the amount of time they've spent in a practice room or in their closet praying. Or, I used to think that we were talking about Richard Smallwood, and I couldn't understand how he could play one note with one finger, and it'd be like a whole note, and you would just have to crawl under a pew. You're like, I've never heard a whole note like that. Yeah. And I began to realize Kirk is like that as well. I don't know too many people who can just play the melody and wear you out with just the melody, jazz artists. And what I began to realize is that people who can do that, they've spent a lot of time when you're not watching and not practicing, praying, in that prayer closet. And that kind of the ability to have that kind of impact, it's not just talent. It's not just talent. It's people who have spent time when no one's watching. So that when they get in that moment to where someone plays an E instead of an E flat, there's some prep that's gone. So you have some tools in your toolbox. You have some vocabulary that can say, oh, okay, I could roll with that. And I think that was like my final exam. I've been working with him for 25 years now. And that was the day he was like, that's my guy.
Oh, wow.
You know, I like what you said, the final exam. Being prepared and being ready for the final exam. We never know when it's coming.
You never know when it's coming.
You don't know what age you'll be when it comes. And, you know, there's something else. Dr. Sharice Barron just said they've spent time when no one's watching.
That's right.
Patrick McCoy said the price that one has to pay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people don't know the price that we have to pay. Karla, I'll let you say another one, but I still, 25 years is amazing. I cannot negate the memory that I have of Richard Smallwood telling me what he went through to write Total Praise. And when we were like backstage at Morgan State University.
Right.
We were about to go on stage, and then I said, "Well, because one more question, because my favorite song from that album is our friend Sharice Nelson. So, thank you. Many times I've fallen, yet you forgave me. Thank you for what you did this morning. You know, for food and for shelter. Just all, you know, thank you. You've done so much. I'm thinking about the words, and when Richard Smallwood told me what he went through for that song, I said, I don't think I ever want to write a song ever, because it blew my mind. And I remember Twinkie Clark when she told me why she wrote the song "Worship the King," and why she wrote the song "Thank you for the healing you gave to me. I was broken." You know, people see people in the limelight. They see people up there, but they have no idea. Though we are tools, we are instruments that the Lord uses musically to write songs, to teach and to train and chisel others. But they have no idea of the chiseling hand of the Lord that's been upon our lives since we were, you know, yay tall, you know, and how every experience has shaped and developed us so that when we step into the final exam, and then when we walk and receive our certificate or our award or our diploma within the thing that we're called and assigned to do, they have no idea that chastening, that's a better way to say it, the molding, the shaping, it prepares us for those platforms so that when we walk in, we have humility. We understand that the gift is not ours, but it has to be shared and spread and passed. It's like we're broken to be spread and passed amongst others. And we're also broken many times so that we can be wise and so that we can have our eyes open when we're in a certain door and platform. Because maybe just like John Stoddart did with Damien, or Karla Scott did with Damien, or Richard Smallwood did with us, or Carmen Balthrop did with me and with Karla, maybe it's our turn to then turn and do that to someone else. You know, it's a cycle. In the Bible, you read about in the Old Testament, you read about the chief musicians, you know, talk about Asaph, and he didn't, you know, other than David. If you read the collection of Psalms, you'll see that there's a lot of names many times that are mentioned before, for those of you that are wondering what I'm speaking of. But what's really present in that text and in the time, the historicity of the Psalms and Chronicles, First and Second Chronicles, is that musicians took time to come together, but also to duplicate themselves in other people. We're mentioning Nolan Williams, Melvin Bryant, and when you're mentioning people like Darren Atwater and Wintley Phipps, Carmen Balthrop, I mean, she's given her life to teaching. These are people who duplicate themselves in others. Karla, is there another defining moment that you have?
Yes, actually, two more occur. So let me just say the first one. I had an opportunity years ago, before Nelson Mandela died, to sing the African national anthem. And I did that in an a cappella duet with Carmen. We were singing at something called the Anwar Sadat Lecture for Peace. At the time, Anwar Sadat's widow was on the faculty at the University of Maryland. And the University of Maryland had named this annual Lecture for Peace in honor of the work that her husband had done. And so that year, the guest speaker was Nelson Mandela. He had been recently freed. Wow. And Carmen was actually asked to sing the national anthem. And in Carmen fashion, she asked me to sing with her.
Wow.
So we did a cappella. And he was standing backstage as we sang. So we get finished singing, we exit the stage, he comes out. This is a moment that changed my life. I saw the power of a submitted individual. When he walked out on the platform, did not say a word, 10,000 people in the room, there was a wave of love that came from that man that literally silenced that room. 10,000 people. I will never, as long as I live, I will never forget what he carried. And we talking about paying the price, and we talking about through it. 27 years later, what that man carried is something I can literally feel it while I'm talking to you right now. Out of his being was it was like a wave of love that went through that room, and I know it was love. I'm not. This is not hyperbole. This is not exaggeration. I know that I know what that man carried, and what I can never understand is the actual price he paid to carry love like that without saying a word. 12 footsteps across that stage to get to the mic. I don't remember a word he said, but I remember the capacity of his spirit to carry and emit love was enormous. It changed my life. And I thought to myself, all of the gifts that we have, and even the calling that we have, is so much higher than the applause of men. If we are not carrying the love of God in that measure, we need to go back in the closet till we get it. It really changed my life. That don't have nothing to do with me singing. I mean, a little bit, but I'm just saying. But literally, the lesson that I was shown, and a demonstration of the capacity of the human spirit, like what you can go through and still be, changed my life.
Yeah, Karla, I heard Pastor Wintley Phipps used to say it like this, and he was speaking in the capacity of music, but I think you just expressed it in what you experienced with President Mandela, is that talent can wow people, but only the Spirit of God can move people and touch people. You know what I mean? So you can be like really, really, really good. And like you say, people will forget after about 2 weeks of listening to your record, they don't have to listen to it ever again. But there's certain people who, or whether there's records or performers, that when you hear them, they have this impact on you that just like you can remember that moment, but you can't remember what he said. It's because as eloquent as he was, it wasn't the gifting of his eloquence that's not where the impact was. The impact was something spiritual. It was on a deeper level. And I think that when we talk about our experiences and kind of how we got where we are, I think it's important that people realize, especially young musicians who are trying to find their way, or young whatever artist, or whether you're an accountant, whatever it is that you are or aspiring to be or working to become, that your impact, your gift is something that you are a steward of and that you're always going to be called to develop. But that's not where your impact is going to ever come from. Your impact is your lasting impact is always going to come from the degree to which you allow God's Spirit to operate in you. That's where your longevity and your real impact on people is going to always come from.
Wow, that is powerful, that your lasting impact comes from the degree to which you allow God's Spirit to operate in you. For those of you that are just tuning in, I hope I repeated it the way you
that was it.
It's amazing, and seeing so many people like the great David Dupree, the phenomenal Leo Davis at Mississippi Boulevard, I believe it is, in Memphis. These are global change agents in arts and entertainment. And if you're just tuning in, you will hear that it is perfection in a quote, because their spirits are spirits of excellence, because their spirits are submitted and yielded to a higher power. And that brings me to my next question. How did your faith significantly impact your life and career? Karla, John, who wants to go first? How did your faith, or how is your faith still?
David, I thought we were going to do surface talking today, man. You got us with scuba gear on. We're going way down today, brother.
Yeah, this is people need it.
Oxygen tank.
Yeah. Or how is your faith significantly impacting your life and career now, even during COVID-19? Whoever wants to go first.
Karla, I'll start this one because mine is going to be short. And I really think of it, it's really all one thing. Like, it's not like your music is over here and your teaching is over here and your faith is over here and your family is over here. It's all the same. It's really all one thing. I take my wife with me when I'm on stage. You know what I mean? When I'm singing, that's part of what's with me, my girls, when I'm out on the road. When I'm practicing, something, a phrase or whatever, or if I'm writing to try to get just the right idea out, or if I'm working, programming and arranging, that attention to detail is informed by my faith in God. The fact that when you hear the record, you may not hear every detail that I put into it, because by the time the mix engineer gets it, the strings will be turned way down and the drums will be turned, whatever, but I know it's there and God knows it's there. So for me, I would say that the fact that, that it's all one thing, that the accountability that I have to my creator is really what informs everything. Everything else after that, the chips are going to fall where they may, but that's where the real accountability is.
That's good. Accountability to the creator. Wow. Anybody who wants to write a book, if you are one who loves to post on Instagram and Facebook, a lot of quirks and quips, I should say. A lot of quips and wonderful quotes that will pull people in to boost your numbers. Listen, tonight, Karla Scott and John Stoddart are laying it on us. This is amazing. And you said attention to detail is informed by one's faith, and it's all one thing: music, career, faith, and family. So, Dr. Scott, Karla, how has your faith, or how did your faith, how does your faith significantly impact your life, your career? Well, as John said, it's all one thing for you as well. So how does it?
Yeah, I mean, I think John said it so perfectly, so eloquently. I'll just say, without my faith, there are no things. Faith is both the foundation. There's a song that I love by Liz Wright called Salt. It is the salt and the stew, inseparable that I do or anything that I endeavor. My faith for sure informs everything that I do, everything that I consider, every relationship, every meeting, every conversation, every creative act. Faith is in front of that. And let me tell you how I know that things are about to go left: when I feel myself step outside of that position. Or when I allow the cares of life to make me think I can do it without being in position. Faith is everything. My life hidden in Christ is everything. Am I doing this to the degree that I'm going to do it at the end of my life? No, because we all about growth. And so there's still some areas where I'm growing into that, but the desire and certainly the endeavor is to keep faith at the forefront. Let faith inform everything that I do, say, am, stay away from, connect to. For real, it is. We know that God Himself is the anchor, but it's almost like faith is the vehicle or the mechanism. And for me, it's everything. Also, the other aspect of faith, which has that ability to call the unseen right here till you can see it and touch it. Very important. Very important to live in that place, because so much of what we do, I mean, you get to a point where you've walked with the Lord for so long, everything you do is by faith anyway. Never quite get used to the waiting process between the knowing that you have in your heart and seeing that thing come to pass where you think hold it. So even on that side of faith as well.
The banner I just typed, and I'm typing it again. I'm going to take my time, because people who watched last week with Justin Austin and Patrice P. Eaton, it's so interesting. I know, Karla, I know you weren't watching last week because I know you were busy last week at this time. But Patrick, if you're still on, you'll remember it. Dana, you'll remember it. What's so interesting is that you said the waiting process, and last week we got stuck on the waiting room. One of my mentees just hit me up earlier today while I was teaching, sent a text message and said that's still speaking to me, the waiting room. You know, John, you talked about the final exam, you know, but it's so important and it's so interesting. I didn't tell you all to say that. I didn't tell you all what was said last week and what really has been a common chord, a common tone, a major overarching theme that's been coming out of the Damien Sneed dialogues. I guess a lot of people are surprised. They said, oh, he's only going to be interviewing classical musicians. And then they said, oh, okay, he's doing jazz musicians. And but for me, this is also an expression of my faith, the river. Like Uzi Brown's song says, this river that keeps me going. You know, the spiritual says deep river. But yes, you know, like Dana Fripp says, yes, it's the waiting process. It's the waiting room. Nicole Elaine Pfeiffer, yep, that's what this pandemic is about to, you know, folks need to be still and wait on the Lord. And it's really a time of waiting and being patient and serving while we wait. So with that being said, how do you all juggle doing so many different things at the same time? You know, Karla, I've seen you do it. Now, Karla can cook. I mean, she can really, really cook. I've seen her cook like a chef. She should have her own restaurant. She probably doesn't have time. And then she has so much understanding of science, so much understanding of the human body. We'll get into that a little bit later. Cebu can tell you as well. Karla saw Cebu from South Africa at one of my conferences in the DMV area. And Karla can literally see someone and say, there was another lady, she said, okay, I see trauma here. There's something on your vocal cord. There's something here. You may have gone through this. She's gifted spiritually and has an understanding of the human body, which is her instrument as a vocalist, that she's able to help people heal and get over certain vocal traumas and move forward to a place of preserving the instrument. So that takes a lot of study. It takes a lot of staying on top of your own physicality, meaning exercise, eating properly. So there's a lot of preparation and time. But then I've seen Karla learn a requiem or learn an aria. I remember when she was preparing for her doctoral recitals. And, you know, she learns that music. And then I've seen her lead worship in a church and spend a lot of time in prayer. When we were on a praise team together, a music department, she would spend a lot of time in prayer. And for those of us that were younger students, you know, we were just used to people just getting up and singing, you know, getting up and just singing a certain song. And I remember Karla would just have us come together on Riggs Road. And she said, instead of rehearsal, we're just going to pray. And everybody's just going to pray. Like everybody, we'd all pray for her. We don't have time like that now. We should make time. But that's one thing that I learned from Karla. So Karla, I don't know how you're able to balance all the many things that you do and being a businesswoman and traveling and promoting your book. And then John, you're a father of young women and you're a husband. And this is not a slight to anyone, but I'm honoring this. Marriage is an honorable institution, and John's been married to the same wife since I met him. That's honorable. It's not a slight to anybody, but that's amazing. With the schedule, performing with Spiral Gyra. I didn't think that was in your bio, but that's really cool, right?
I play with Spiral. I know I've worked
Bonnie
with
James. Yes, that's right.
Bonnie
James. Okay, Bonnie James.
James, yeah.
Also,
small community.
Wow. And see, Subu was attesting to you, Dr. Scott. She said, praise God, I've never lost my voice like that ever again. This is the first time. And John, I've seen you go and put the same energy forward in your classes as Karla does when you're teaching on the university level. If you're accompanying a student, you give it the same honor as if you're on the Stellar Awards or the Grammy Awards. You write out music, you're scoring music. You're always there. And I know people say this is Damien's quirkiness and his idiosyncratic fashion, and I say fashion because it's just how I'm formed. I pay attention to detail and faithful details, but you never see these people out with dirty teeth. You never see them with they never smell. Those that work with choral singers, we know sometimes people can have a little must. Not musk, but must. M-U-S-T, must. Some people are laughing. But no. I'm serious about that. Because you know what? God can send mentors, but these mentors always are clean. They always are presentable. They're fashionable. You don't find all of that. They're laughing, but it makes a difference. And the college professors, you know what I'm talking about. Well, conductors, you know what I'm talking about. But I mean, on every facet of their lives, things are of excellence. And so how do you all look? People are laughing now. Yeah, it's true.
Let me jump in while the must is low. Let me say this. I think the question that you asked us is how do you balance everything? So the answer is really simple. That doesn't mean it's easy to do. But the simple answer for me is just like the families and the persons in the tribe of Issachar, you have to know what season you're in. You have to be discerning about what this time is for, because when you are multi-passionate, multi-gifted, I think before you really understand, like we talked about before, standing behind that place of faith, there is a tremendous temptation to use all of your gifts all the time. But as you grow just a little bit and walk with him just a little bit, you'll begin to discover, no, certain releases and certain combinations of my gifts in use and in play are for certain seasons. Mm-hmm. And then the Lord will shift that season and now you're flowing in a different way. Yeah. So for me, the short answer is know the times and the seasons. Mm-hmm. Now, you can have a knowing in your soul, inside your mind, your will, and emotions, and you will be wrong. You have to know the season maker.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, now, and the time.
The season maker.
And I ain't talking about no Lowry's either. But
yes, sir.
You really have to be connected to him so that you know what this season is for. And that way it also keeps you from mourning what you aren't getting to do right now or what you aren't getting to have right now. I say this all the time. If we knew what the roughest moments in our lives were connected to, we would be less sad. Because they're always connected to something good, because they're always a precursor. You can't grow unless you're challenged. And if you're a leader, the soil you're growing up in is exceptionally rocky. Get used to it. That's just how it is. So when you live your life being connected to the season that the Lord is calling you to, there's less grief. Doesn't make it any easier because the challenges will remain. That's how we grow. That's how we learn to lean and depend. That's how we learn that we are not everybody we think we are. But I'll just stop right there and defer to my brother John.
No, I was here taking it in. I was
know, right?
I was ready to log on Facebook and make a comment myself just because. My goodness. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing else to add to that, Karla, other than thank you. I will say that, none of us is doing it perfectly.
That's right.
And so I really appreciate that word from you, Karla. That's something that I needed to hear, even today, because, Yeah, we just need to be reminded of that sometimes. We have a lot of anxiety. We can have a lot of anxiety about the place we currently are, because we're always think, oh, what's next? Where am I going? Where am I trying to get to? And you miss the moment, For me, a lot of that, Damien mentioned my family, a lot of that was me working at home. I wasn't touring as much then when my girls were young. When we moved to Huntsville, we were homeschooling them. And so for about 4 or 5 years, I was able to be home with my girls. And, that's frustrating because, I'm supposed to be out on the road. I mean, I'm a provider. I'm supposed to be gigging this and this and that. But God had me in that place for that time because the season was, okay, you're doing these other things, but sort of the focus of this season is your fathering of your daughters. So that's an example of what you're talking about. And it was just great to be reminded of that because a lot of us can maybe feel that in this season now, especially musicians. This is just a weird time for musicians. We're in this pandemic and it's like, are we ever going to get to perform on something other than Zoom ever again? And just, it's just crazy. It's crazy. The gigs that we had lined up till 2022, they all been canceled. And, so there's this anxiety about, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And, what you just said, I think was something that we all needed to be reminded of, that, hey, God is a God of seasons and we don't have to be anxious about any season that he has us in. We're in it for a reason. And there's preparation for whatever the next season will be. Awesome, Karla. That's right on it, man. Whew.
That was very succinct, John. God is a God of seasons, and we don't have to be anxious about any season because sometimes seasons are preparatory. I was teaching music theory. We were talking about the progression of chords and a circle progression, which is something that I wasn't that familiar with, but it's common. I'm familiar with it as far as aurally, Aurally, hearing it. And I'm familiar with the chord progressions, but calling it a circle progression. But, so is the circle of life. And so is the way that God will move us through the seasons of our life, where it's like a secondary dominant then functions as a dominant of the chord. And then that chord can also function as a secondary dominant. And if you have a detour, I'm giving summation, if you have a detour, then that could be like a Neapolitan chord. It's a half step up from where you want to land on the tonic. But it still functions as a dominant, and it still will serve the purpose of taking you to a 5-1. So we have to learn.
Listen.
We have to learn in life, not to be anxious for anything. We have to understand. Hi, Mom is watching Barbara Wright Pryor. We have to understand that in life, everything works together. Sometimes we wonder why people are in our lives, and I can definitely say I would have never dreamed that the circle comes back to 1. That's good. I would have never dreamed. Yeah, Yadita, seasons, winter and the summer, but no matter what happens, if you understand music, the Neapolitan chord, it comes, but it still serves as a dominant. It still serves as the 5, meaning we're possibly about to go back to the 1. So you have to understand, but we're waiting. The waiting process, the waiting room. See, this is so amazing. I can't begin to say how this blows my mind that I would meet the two of you my sophomore year at Howard University. Never knowing that I would live in New York City, I thought I was going to live in PG County, Prince George's County, and to be sequestered and alone in my home in New York. But yet God can bring together, and it was through divine inspiration because he tells me who to have on each week. I had no idea that you all were connected, through Tony Walker and other people and Nolan, but I had no idea that God would bring 2 people that he brought in my life during my sophomore year, my second year in college. He instrumentally used you all to train me, to teach me, to show me the future, to show me what I could move towards, and also to be balances and to be friends. So for me to have the two of you on this platform again, it's like God is speaking to me again and saying, Damien, I've brought these 2 people. I thought I was bringing you all on to talk about global change agents in arts and entertainment. But what this conversation tonight has done, a major thing for me. It's a blessing to me personally. I know it's a blessing to people, but it's a blessing to me because I'm watching you all thrive during the pandemic. I've watched your life up close and from afar. And to see the two of you sit and talk, and you have two different lives, but you still are opening your mouth and you're saying the same thing. There's a sense of commonality. As Robert McRae just said, every chord makes the music. And even the dissonance is necessary because then it allows us to value the consonants. And clearly we can tell that the dissonance in your lives, the negative things, have worked to cause you all to feel the balance in your lives in every area. So can you all do something that I just did? I keep mentioning to people how you all have mentored me and how you all have been examples for me and how God has used you all as mentors for me to look towards for things that I would do in my life and my destiny. So can you all name two people who have been extremely important to your development along the way? I know you mentioned Dr. Whitley Phipps, Pastor Whitley Phipps. I know Karla, you mentioned Carmen Balter. Is there anyone else that you all can mention? You all both mentioned your parents as well, but anyone else that you all can mention that has mentored you from afar or up close?
Oh, other than the people we already said? Okay, so I'll go one, and then John, you go one. Okay. I will choose a person that I never met, who recently died, and that would be Ravi Zacharias. Doesn't that sound weird? Mm-hmm. But I just believe you don't have to personally know people who mentor you. I just believe that the Lord sends people here with things inside of their lives. And some people have a very broad reach with what they carry, and some people have a very sort of intimate reach with what they carry. But for me, Ravi Zacharias had such a kindness, yet a fearlessness with which he defended the faith, almost in such a way that it didn't seem like a defense at all, like because it didn't seem argumentative. But I also was very, very drawn to the fact that he was extremely intelligent and made no apologies for that. What he gave me was the courage to operate in the level of intelligence and intellect God gave me without shrinking. Very important, especially when you are a woman and a brown one. See my costume? Yeah. Not everybody. So he gave me a boldness to operate inside of that. He also showed me the power of humor in action, because often when he was right-siding a conversation, he would open that response with humor, because humor is a heart opener. And I just thought he was brilliant in his use. And then finally, his kindness. One of the greatest minds, and there have been so many in the history of this world, but one of the greatest minds, but the deep humility that covered all that he said and that he did, man, he was definitely one of my heroes. I would say from the time that I was about 20, for sure.
Yeah, I just learned recently that I didn't realize that he had passed. I just learned recently, and he not quite to the same degree, but for sure a person who has influenced me as well. But I'm going to go with someone in my family again that I haven't mentioned to this point, and that's my grandmother, Ruth Chisholm. And Grandma Chisholm, this is my mother's mom, and she was about 4'10". Oh. I don't think she weighed more than about 80 or 90 pounds, but she played the piano and organ. She was a seamstress. She ran a soup kitchen in Philadelphia. Of course, she was a grandmother. She was a Bible worker at her church. And just, she was one of those people who could walk in the seediest neighborhoods of Philadelphia at midnight, and everyone there knew who, like, no one would do anything to her because they knew who she was, because she was that engaged with the community. And so she was a person who had a wide variety of gifts. When I say she was a seamstress, I mean, like, she worked as a seamstress making men's suits. when she was in her younger years. So everything from that, again, all the way to being, an amazing musician, all the way to being an activist and just, there in Philadelphia. So she's a person who I think when you talked about, our last question was talking about how do you juggle all these different things. She was a person who exemplified that for me. She was able to do so many things with excellence. And I think that it was at the root of it all was a love for people. Karla, you can appreciate this as a voice instructor, you too, Damien, as well. But she was known for helping people who were tone deaf learn how to sing. So people who always want to learn how to sing, and she was able to, I don't think she was a trained musician per se. Not in the way that, that we are. She didn't have a doctorate in music or anything, but just her understanding of what musicality was and is. It was just innate for her. And then her love for people, it just covered everything she did. And it allowed her to do so many different things with such a high level of excellence. I mean, from making a wedding dress all the way to, she was like this amazing woman. So she was someone who mentored me, who was a big influence.
So you mentioned that your grandmother, Ruth Chisholm, was able to walk the streets of Philadelphia. We know the great Marian Anderson also walked those streets of Philadelphia. And Karla, you grew up in the South, outside of Greensboro, right in the Greensboro, North Carolina area. So I'm curious, what from both of you, what are your thoughts and feelings on the climate of racism, discrimination, and cultural inclusion today? And I won't even just say in music, because you all are global change agents. You have represented America in various countries. You all have been sent out as ambassadors to several continents, and you truly are diplomats for this country and for people of color. And your experiences have caused you both to live in the South, respectively Alabama, North Carolina, but also to live in the Pennsylvania area where you're from, and you went to school there, John, and then also Karla, you were teaching at Eastern, I believe, is Eastern University in Pennsylvania, and then you all both have resided and have strong roots in the DMV, the DC, Washington DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So you've really seen what it's like in the North, and you felt that. You have seen what it's like in the South with the tentacles of discrimination. And Karla, you sort of touched on a little bit about sometimes how women go through marginalization. And now you all have lived in the DC area, and you've seen the changes that I see when I go back to visit under various administrations, and how DC was from the Bush administrations to Clinton to Obama, and now to what we have. What we have. That's what I said. My platform. So, yeah. So I'm curious, because you all cover a lot of genres. You all do sing spirituals. You do sing gospel. You all do sing worship songs. You sing, if they want to say, CCM songs, or as you said, you sing scholarly works. You sing classical. You sing. You've worked with opera, arias. You've worked with requiems and oratorio. You've worked with love songs that can come from a pure place. You've worked with so many different styles of music, and because you all do so many things, that's not being shady. You do a lot of things, but you do them on such a high level. It's like you're poured out to so many different people, cultures, nationalities, and people from all walks of life. So your vantage point concerning racism, discrimination, and cultural inclusion is different from others who have a walk of life that may be more, where they go to the same job every day, or where they do 2 or 3 things. So I'm curious to hear, and it's not about making a political statement, so to speak, but it's whatever you feel, or if you want to speak to what you think will help heal the current woes and issues in the world. I won't even say the country, in the world, or if you also want to speak to experiences that have been buoyant items, I'll say, brilliant things that you just sort of had to bounce off, and it caused you to keep your focus to make sure that as you're representing, you also are including something that's created by someone from the African or the African American diasporic community. I mean, it can go any way, but I'd love to hear from you all, professors. Yeah, what are your feelings on, thoughts on the climate of racism, discrimination, and cultural inclusion in the country, our nation, and the world?
I have to exhale before I begin to answer that. I'm not even really sure where to begin. Hey, Karla, if you'll allow me to start the answer on this. I remember watching the massacre that happened there in Charleston, South Carolina, and with my teenage daughter at the time, and my older daughter, Annalise, and I was inspired to write a song called Rescue Me, and I recorded, and actually my daughter helped me write the lyrics to that song. And I think she might even be singing on it as well. I can't remember. She's one of the background singers. But the reason I mention that is not so much to self-promote, but just to say that, the idea of musicians who leverage their platform as artists to impact and to inform people and to call attention to injustice and to do our best to uplift people who are marginalized, or to call attention to the fact that, hey, this group over here is being marginalized. And particularly the history and the tradition of Black music, it's inextricable. That's part of what makes Black music feel the way it feels.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have a Negro spiritual. You can't write that unless you're a slave. You know what I mean? So it's like that, the connection between those two. So I feel like the platform that we have as artists, to be able to call attention, not only to call attention, because I think that's part of it too, but also there's something about music that bridges and spans differences in a way that few other things can. I think sports can do it. There's just not many things that can do it. Food, maybe, I don't know, but music in an especially unique way, because music has the ability to sort of go past the part of you that reasons and go straight to the heart, the part that sort of connects, on that deeper level. And so how I've been approaching it is trying to find ways of leveraging the music that God has given me, either for healing, for information, for connection. I don't think it's one thing. I think there's a lot of things that music allows us as a platform to be able to do. And the other thing I would say before handing it to Karla is that, and then I'm going to send my daughter to get my power cord because my computer's died, is that I really believe that a lot of what will really help continue the healing and the restoration between races is when we are really intentional. And when I say this, I'm talking to Black people, to white people, to gay people, to straight people, to Republicans, whatever your thing is, that when we are intentional about forming relationships, like real significant relationships with people who are different than we are, you seeing something happen to a transsexual that's just been brutalized on television, it means something different to you if you have a friend, not someone you met, but if you have a friend who that's where they are in their life, you know. And I think that's true of race. I think that's true of class, you know, and we have to be intentional about it, because one of the things that the internet has done is it's actually allowed us to separate more. I mean, some people think it's allowed us to come together, but in many ways, it's allowed us to separate more. We have all these different news sources. You can watch one news channel and get one perspective, and you never have to listen to or hear or think or see anybody else's opinion. And so you have to like intentionally turn the channel and see what someone else is thinking or what someone else is saying. And even if you may not agree or you may not come to that same conclusion, I think what that does is it creates a different type of interaction and a different type of empathy and a different type of empathetic communication when we are intentional about not just reaching out, not just helping, but forming relationships with people, like intentionally. This person is different than I am. Their background is different. They speak a different language. I'm learning Spanish now. Yo hablo español. Yo aprendo español. And one of the reasons is because there's something humbling about learning a new language.
Sí, señor.
Yeah. And I'm loving it, man. I mean, reading my Bible in Spanish and seeing how, you know, the people who translated this particular translation from Hebrew or Greek, but into Spanish, how they're seeing it differently. I mean, it just begins to impact all sorts of things. It's downstairs by the table in the, can you get my power cord? My phone's about to die. Bring it to me, sweetie. So anyway, my computer's about to die, so I'm hoping that I don't lose you. But anyway, so that's my spiel about how music and art can really help us be able to bridge some of these seemingly impassable divides that we have. It's possible. We can see it with music. Just look out in any musical concert audience. It doesn't even matter the genre. And you'll see a diversity of people, economically, racially, culturally. So we have a particularly powerful instrument with music, with the gift of music.
Very true. And if we lose you, you can sign back on. Yeah. Dr. Scott, Karla.
Yes. So I agree with everything that John said. I think this is a really big question. And I think it's a lot to try and tackle and wrap our heads around. For me, one of the places that I stand on is Galatians 6:2. And Galatians 6:2 says this: bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. For me, I think that is really the work. So many people outside of marginalized communities are not willing to do that, not because they're so angry or not because they're so hateful, but because they're blind. It is literally an experience that they do not have, just as John said so eloquently. But I think particularly if we're in the body of Christ, they're in the body of Christ, look at all ethnicities and all kind of ways. If we are inside the body of Christ, which certain things are supposed to start with us anyway, we need to be standing inside of that scripture. I know you don't understand racism, and I know you don't understand being marginalized. And I know that from your perspective, it doesn't seem real because it's not something you experience. But as a believer, can you bear my burden? As a believer, instead of dismissing me and telling me what it's not, can you just hold space for me to tell you what it is for me? And when I sing a song about it, don't flip to the next song. Listen to that song. And when I stop in the middle of my concert and share something that has deeply broken my family or hurt my family, don't tune out until I start singing your next favorite. I think this is part of the work, bearing one another's burdens so that we can fulfill the law of Christ. What's the law of Christ? Love. So I think that's a starting place for healing. And I think that it is incumbent upon those of us who have giftings in the creative arts to place a demand on that part of humanity. And we have to keep placing a demand on that because it's not something that a lot of people are willingly going to offer up. So our job becomes releasing a healing bomb, but only sometimes after provoking.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep.
Wow, that's good. Place a demand on the part of humanity that heals through love and sometimes causes a provoking. That's really, really good. Can we bear someone else's burden? Can we have understanding of what their pain is, as you said, John? And I know that both of you use your platforms as catalysts and change agents representing protest and reconciliation. And again, if someone is wondering as we move to closing tonight, I called you all global change agents because your music, your life, your work goes beyond the borders of the 50-51 because they're voting about DC. I'm not sure if the vote is going to pass, becoming in solidarity a state. It's a district now, and that would make 51 states from the 50 that we have. But I've seen your work go beyond our country. I've seen Karla when we traveled to Cuyera. If I said it right, it looks like Culera, but it's Cuyera and Barcelona. Stuff like that. I've seen people
with a lisp, and the whole country is.
The whole they put a lisp in it, and John, he got a chance to perform with Quincy Jones in Rome, Italy, as a way to try to heal. That's amazing. That you all have been able to be global change agents in arts and in entertainment. So if you all have the opportunity to speak with yourself at 18 years old, with what you know now and what you've experienced, what things would you say to 18-year-old John? And Karla, what would you say to 18-year-old Karla?
Karla, I've been going first. I'm going to let you go first on this one. Or do you need a second?
Oh, shoot. He's figured out my secret. I like to while you're talking. But I would say to my 18-year-old self, your life will be nothing that you imagine today. I would say learn, as I said at the top of this meeting, learn to embrace detours. They are the Lord's divine repositioning system. The detours that you'll face in your life, young Karla, with your cute self, girl, I see. But the detours that you face will, instead of fulfilling your own selfish dreams, they will position you over and over and over where the Lord can get a maximum return off of the gifts He's placed in your life. They will have very little to do with your training. He will train you on the job. Very little to do with where you think you should be. He will give you the love for the people He's sending you to. They will have very little to do with advancing the career that you thought you meant to have. But He will take you higher and open doors for you that you never even thought about. So I would say to myself, your life is not going to look like you expect it to look like you're mapping out right now. But if you trust God and embrace the detours, his hand will be all over you. Like you will not leave the center of His will.
That's good stuff. Two things I would say to my 18-year-old self. One is you cannot overestimate the power of habits.
Ooh.
Good habits that you want to keep and bad habits that you're trying to get rid of. That the ability to make good habits and shed bad habits is a skill that I think it's important to learn as young as possible. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I would say to my 18-year-old self is, I think I look back now, because as my life began to evolve, particularly as I got married and became a dad, we talked about seasons earlier, that season commanded my attention as it related to, my passion for music, in a way that I didn't anticipate. I have friends who tease me because I would sit out by the lake eating grapes, with my guitar, writing songs, and now I got to take out the trash, and, I got to drive this one to, volleyball practice. And it's just life stuff that is awesome, but it's stuff where this season kind of took my attention and placed it on, what was necessary for that season. So I didn't realize that the investment I was making in building my technique and whatever it was that was going to make me able to work as a musician, I didn't realize when I was 18 that that's really the best time to be building the solid foundation for that, because life just becomes busier as you go. So whatever it is that you're trying to build, start early, because as your life begins to evolve, you're going to need to rely on that foundation that you built. You're not going to be able to invest in the same way. The investment is going to have to pay off later. So invest, whether it's educate, if you're going to go to grad school, go when you're 20, don't go when you're 45 and married and you're trying to raise kids and stuff. If you can, go ahead and do it, knock it out, have it. That's one thing. That's one, I don't know if I call it a regret, but my mother told me when I graduated from undergrad, she said, go to grad school. I'm still trying to go 25 years later. It's something that I would love to be able to do, but it's a lot more complex now just because life is more complex. So
that's powerful.
And that's powerful. Wow, that's powerful. Youth, the time of your youth is the best time to develop foundation, because the investment will pay off later. And to those of you who are watching now who may have missed that moment of your youth, when you were 18, do it today.
Do it today, exactly. It doesn't matter.
Apply to college tonight. If someone wants to go to college, reach out to me. Send an email. Send it to one of us. If you want to go back to school, get a real estate license, whatever it is, do it today. Don't wait till next week. Who knows? We may have another, unfortunately, but we may have another pandemic or second wave, third wave. We pray not. But don't wait for the next stimulus check. Do it now. There may not be another stimulus check. We don't know the condition of our country. If you want to write a song, don't wait on somebody to give you a big record deal.
That's right.
Some big name to come and call you on the phone or send you an email or invite you to come fly across town or fly across the country or outside of the country to do something. There are ways that you can do everything that's in your heart of hearts to do, to fulfill your destiny, to do everything that you dreamed of. And you don't have to wait on some big, flying eagle to come, flying down. And I think this is interesting for me too. Sometimes I think I waited for a person or waited for something, some golden door to open. And the way that I've been able to accelerate and excel, ACCEL, accelerate and excel, EXCEL, in my life in so many different areas is because it wasn't the times when I waited for somebody to tap me. Sometimes you'll read an article or a press release, so-and-so taps this person for this next position. But it's the moments, it was the times, it happens to be the experiences where I just decided to leap forward on my own without waiting, because there was a knowing in my knower, in my spirit, that is something I was called to do. So that's powerful, John. That's powerful.
And let me say this before we move on from there, as it relates to school, going back to school at a later time in life. Please understand, Damien is right on the money. Do it, because what you will discover is when you
okay.
When you go back to school later in life, the life experience that you bring to schooling will cause you to move faster with less intimidation. you will see the forest and the trees.
Now say that again.
It's not like that when you're 19. You think that every word that comes out of your professor's mouth is gospel truth because you have no life experience. But when you go back with life experience, the intimidation is gone. Baby, let me tell you, that sheet is pulled all the way back. You see what it is and you see what it ain't. Then you just decide, well, I'm here to gain this. And you understand what school is for. School is, yes, for partially the information that you gain in the classroom, but school is for the connections. So choose wisely. Choose a place that can connect you for where you're trying to go next, whether it's through the professors, whether it's through the programs that they offer and things of that nature. And you're going to spend the next 4 years doing something, may as well.
And I'll use this moment, even though it's alive and some people will be listening to this after the fact. But anybody who's interested in going to school to finish your undergraduate degree, hello, Anika, we were just talking about you. Who's interested in finishing their undergraduate degree in music? I am a professor at a college, and they are looking to still give scholarships now for online training and hybrid learning right now in the pandemic. And you can apply tomorrow or next week and get in and start classes in, I think, September. You can reach out to me on my website, our info@damiensneed.com. I just want to throw that out there. But yeah, it's really important to do whatever it is that you want to do. If you've been listening to us, if you've been watching these phenomenal global change agents in arts and entertainment speak this evening, if you're listening on a podcast, what they're saying is really not just something they read out of a book, but it's something they've lived, and it makes it that much more powerful. Okay, so I'm going to announce, as I always do, next week's guests for the episode number 10 for Damien Sneed Dialogues. And I must say, if you all have any questions for John Stoddart or Dr. Karla Scott, please type them in now. As I announce this, I have one more question for them myself. And again, type in all of your questions in the comments. You may not be able to do it from my regular page, but you can do it from my artist page, from the Damien Sneed Foundation page. So you can go over to that page. Sibu says, bless all of you. We're so glad to see you. Glad to know you're here in America. I just got a question by text message. Thank you. So everybody's asking, are they giving scholarships for graduate school as well? They're giving scholarships right now for undergrad, but I also do know of scholarships for grad school. So hit me up about that as well. Doctorate, whatever it is.
Let me know if we have time, because I can definitely share my scholarship story. Let me know if we have time.
Okay. This sounds good. So please type your comments in. And questions, mainly your questions. If you have a question for them. Okay.
How do you take it to students or baby sisters?
This is going to be really exciting. So next week, these are my guests, and I want to read a little bit about them. We have the topic for episode 10, faith, film, and the arts. We have my good friend from the DMV, Washington, D.C. area. She went to Duke Ellington School of the Arts, and that is none other than Edwina Finley Dickerson. She went to New York University, the Tisch School of the Arts, and she's not only been on shows for the Oprah Winfrey Network, but she was in that one of the lead characters in the show If Loving You Is Wrong. She's had recurring roles in the HBO television drama The Wire and Treme. She was in the independent film Middle of Nowhere, and she's working with Tyler Perry. She's been on Law and Order. She's been on the ABC daytime soap opera One Life to Live. She's been on so many different shows. She actually was living with her mentor and her mentor's husband, Viola Davis, when she first moved from New York. I had a chance to play at her wedding. She's married to Kelvin Dickerson. And she is such a phenomenal human being. She is a person of faith. There's so many things about Edwina, and she will share a lot how prophecy really moved in her life and how many times the next step, God would send someone that she did not know to give her a word of knowledge about something that was going to come, and how even though with the loss of her mother, how her faith has really been her driving force as she is now becoming a force to be reckoned with in the arts and also in film in Tinseltown, in Hollywood, that is. And then the other person is a good friend of mine. Some people may have heard him singing. He has an album out. He's an actor, singer, instrumentalist, songwriter. He led the song for the West Angeles Church of God in Christ single, Lord Prepare Me to Be a Sanctuary. He's a phenomenal musician, good friend of mine. He's been on the TV series The Blacklist. Now, Edwina was on Law and Order. He's been on NCIS New Orleans. He was also Raymond Piranha Jones on the Luke Cage series on Netflix. He's been in Blue Bloods, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel TV series, The Game, on the movie by Bishop T.D. Jakes, Woman Thou Art Loosed. He was a deacon. He's been Aaron on The Parkers. He was in Touched by an Angel, Seventh Heaven. He was also Elbridge Al Bryant in the TV miniseries The Temptations. He's been on In the House. He's been on the TV series Sister. He was Stevie on Set It Off. He's been on the Steve Harvey Show. He was a student in The Nutty Professor. He was Whitlock on Moesha. I mean, he's been in so many films that I can't even begin to name all of them. And the thing about him is his faith is very much a strong part of who he is and what he does. So please tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So before we go, we do have some questions. Dr. Sharice Barron wants to hear your scholarship story. But before we do that, because I may have tired them out, everybody, we're supposed to go only to 60 to 80 minutes, not the viewers. I know people who text me like, I just signed on, don't end yet. But we have a very busy schedule. But I do want to ask you all this question before we see if we can entertain the question about your scholarship story, Dr. Scott. And also anything that you want to say, John or Karla. What projects are you currently working on, or what projects are coming down the pipeline for you all? Can you all share that with us? John, do you have any new projects you're working on, recording?
I do. I'm Kirk Whalum is working on a new Christmas record. I just got finished doing some stuff for that, and literally I have to turn it in, I think tomorrow or Thursday. Aaron Lindsay, amazing gospel producer that I've had the privilege of working with for the past several years.
Who is that again?
Aaron Lindsay.
Oh, amazing! The greatest.
Yeah, he's pretty good. He'll do in a pinch. But he called me last week. He's finishing up the new Marvin Sapp record, and he called me to do one of it. So I'm down. Literally, when I'm hanging up here, I'm back to the studio to finish that arrangement. I have to turn it in next day or so. So I think they're mastering next week. So those are sort of the two things that are at the top of the list here.
You all see that even in the midst of a pandemic, and even they're taking the time, both of them, to be on this platform, but they're yet working. I think I misspelled Aaron's name, but I want to get up there quickly.
Yeah, is it SC?
AY, right?
AY.
Yeah.
That's right. It's SC.
Right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I had a wonderful opportunity of working with him for Karen Clark Sheard's album. It's Not Over, and that was with Israel Houghton, and it was just amazing. He is so brilliant. He is so amazing.
He really is,
and
man. Just
heart for God, and a very humble person out of the Ohio area. And yeah, that's amazing. So he's got 2 deadlines between tomorrow and next week.
Oh, and also there's another artist, a guy named Chris Walker out of the Houston area.
Yes.
You know Chris. Chris was he's an amazing artist in and of his own right, but a lot of people know him. He was Al Jarreau's music director for the probably 20, 25 years up until he passed, and just an amazing bass player, a singer, songwriter. And so I'm doing an orchestra arrangement for. He just recorded a new song during the pandemic. Featuring Dave Kaz, and so I got to do the orchestration for that. So those are my 2 orchestra deadlines between now and the end of the week.
A lot of my students from Manhattan School of Music will know the great Al Jarreau. He did the theme for Moonlighting.
That's right.
Also on the phenomenal project that Mervyn Warren and Quincy Jones collaborated on together, Handel's Messiah Soulful Celebration, the song "Why Did the Nations Fiercely Rage Together?" You know, he's one. Why do the nations? And he has that sound, you know,
right.
like Tulsa. I think I said it right. In South Africa tongue. Sibu, you know if I said it correctly. Yeah, Tulsa. I can't do it. You can do it.
Tulsa. You're real. Look at the front, the middle, and in the back in that language.
I can't do it, man. It's incredible.
Yes. Wow. That's major, John. Wow.
That's incredible.
And you all see he's taking the time to share with us. I'm blown away, man. Thank you. I'm humbled. Wow. And Karla, what things do you have coming down the pipe? I know that you just did. You have a book that you've released. It's a phenomenal book. And then you also have Vocal Spa, and you have things that you're selling too. There's so much. Well, not just things she's selling. You can talk about it, but the new product as well. I think you should say that to the people that are watching. The spray that you have for singers.
I don't. No. No. So what's happening for me is I have a jazz record that has been recorded but has not been mastered. It is reharms and rearrangements of some of my favorite spiritual texts, and so that's kind of been in limbo for a few moments. The Vocal Spa Damon mentioned, that's the company that I founded that trains singers. Specifically, I started with training singers in the body of Christ. Within the past 2 years, I've moved that company fully online, so it's in a digital space. My Instagram handle for that is _ the power of your voice _ And there I train singers. I do 4-week workshops, private consultations, private classes, and all sorts of free tips and things like that are always out on that page. But that's really my business and my baby. I guess we have about 4 weeks before school starts again. So we'll be back at Eastern University for another year. I'm not sure if we'll be fully digital or some sort of hybrid. And those, I would say, are the main 3 things going on with me at the moment. Uh-oh. Can't hear you, Damien.
Karla, can you give us your website? Is it karlascott.net?
Karla with a K, karlascott.net.
And John, your website is
johnstoddart.com. And then Facebook is John Stoddart Music with a T on the end, Stoddart.
Wait, say that again.
Stoddart, johnstoddart.com.
Got it.
Yeah. And that's the same with Twitter and Instagram.
Facebook. Yes, sorry, I misspelled your name. Sorry.
No problem.
And
there you go.
Twitter and Instagram. So if you all could do something that we've sort of adapted on this platform, if you don't mind, can you all share your Cash App or your Venmos? I sent you all a private message, but I'm not sure if you all saw it. You all know it by from memory?
That's so sweet. I'm looking it up right now.
Which both of you have what? Cash App? Or
I have a Cash App.
Okay, we can do Cash App, I guess.
Oh, so my Cash App is the Voice Doc.
The Voice Doc, that's good. Mine isn't nearly as exciting. It's Urban JE.
Got it.
Yeah.
And Urban JE.
Right, which is like Urban Junction East, but just the last 2 letters. So
Got
Urban JE.
So please, if you can, does that look right, everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, please sow into these phenomenal gifts, these phenomenal artists, for the wisdom that they've poured out, the time that they've given. Support their music, support their offerings, whatever they're doing online. And I'm sure after COVID-19 and the social distancing limitations that are here because of the virus and the pandemic, after that's lifted, I know they will be coming to a city near you. So we do have a question. This is from David Dupree. Do any of you associate keys with areas of music, such as E flat being a worship key, or A flat being praise, F sharp as warfare?
I do. Absolutely.
You do?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, no, I don't quite process it that way. I think maybe more harmonically, like there are certain keys that I think definitely feel differently, but there are certain sort of groups of chords, I think, that impact me in that way, that kind of send me, okay, this feels more peaceful, or this particular progression or chord feels a little more whatever. So.
Well, thank you all so much for tonight's topic, Global Change Agents in Arts and Entertainment, with Karla Scott and John Stoddart. Again, you can reach Karla Scott at karlascott.net. You can reach John Stoddart at johnstoddart.com. And you can reach Karla on Instagram at the @ underscore the power of your voice underscore. Is that correct, Karla?
That's correct.
On Instagram. And for John Stoddart, it's John Stoddart on Facebook. Of course, on Instagram, I believe it all runs together. And also on Twitter. And please, if you can, be generous and sow something, even if it's $1, even if it's $1,000. No, I don't know.
I have a daughter starting college in a couple of weeks, so I will appreciate it.
For Karla Scott, it is the $ the voice doc, DOC. And for John Stoddart, it is $ urban J as in junction, E as in
East.
I was going to say entertainment. Urban JE.
Great.
Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you, panelists, for being on. Okay.
What is your Cash App, sir? You have created this platform. You have brought people together. You've planned. You've arranged. You've sweated. You've cooked. You've fried. You've sauteed. You've baked.
Well, if you all choose to give something, please go to the Damien Sneed Foundation.org, and you can make a donation there. It is a 501c3 nonprofit, and you can give there as we continue to try to forward education and giving back to people. Thank you so much, DeAndre. Yeah, this has really been right on time for so many people, as it has been for me. Well, I'm going to let them go, and I'm going to sign off. Karla and John, if you all can hold, and thank you all for tuning in this week.
Bye, everybody. God bless.